The new salary cap is announced, and we go through the latest news and rumors around our Chicago Bears next on the Unbearable Sports Podcast.
We're going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice long
Welcome
hair.
back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube so you do not miss another Chicago Bears update. And hit that bell so you don't miss out on our live shows Wednesdays and Sundays at 7:30 live on YouTube. Also, make sure to download the podcast everywhere that you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it. You can find us. Just search for Unbearable Sports. What is going on? Happy weekend. Hopefully the week has been great for you. We have to break down some news and also the salary cap. The salary cap absolutely exploded. So that leaves us Bears fans pretty excited. Even though it happened to everybody else, we're pumped because we still have a bunch of cap space. So how much cap space? In fact, I'll break that down next. So if you don't know, the salary cap raised all the way up to $255 million. That is a bump of about over $30 million. And that's actually a lot larger than a lot of other experts were predicting. So just for reference, people were saying if it went to 250, it would be crazy. It's all the way up to 255. So what does that mean for the Bears? Obviously, we're still third with the most cap space because nothing else changed, all right? Everyone else got the same exact cap boost, but we have $80.4 million according to overthecap.com. Now, Spot Rack, which is Over the Cap's, rivals, they have 82.9 for the Bears. So all that we need to know is that the Bears have over $80 million. And I'll tell you, that feels pretty darn good. Having over $80 million in cap space, the number 9 picks in the draft, that feels great. And also, this factors in that Montez Sweat already has a gigantic contract signed to him. So that immediately went with us Bears fans, immediately went to the next topic, right? We went, okay, so what about Jaylen Johnson? So a little bit of update on that as well. So because of the new salary cap and everything else that's going on, the tags also changed too. So before it was projected about 18.8 million. Now Jaylen Johnson, if he were to get tagged, the tag is now 19.8 million. So it's really just an extra $1 million on top of that. But also, too, a little bit about Jaylen Johnson. Remember, he still wants to be the highest paid cornerback. He literally said that. And if he were to be the highest paid cornerback, it would be at probably over $21 million because the current highest is Jair Alexander at $21 million. So my question to you, the people, would you pay Jaylen Johnson? Would you give him the contract? Would you tag him? Would you tag and trade him? Would you let him walk? I know there's a lot of Terrell Smith fans out there because Terrell Smith played well, but Jaylen Johnson to me, though, is still what he did last season. He was a true lockdown number 1 corner, and, we've seen this. We've seen him lock down Devontae Adams. We've seen him wreck games, and actually PFF tweeted this out, that he had the second highest coverage grade over the last 2 seasons combined. So it wasn't just last season. Their grades also say this guy knows how to cover. And that's where, to me, if you can tag him, I think that would be the best option and say, give me another season. Show me what you can do. But also, I'm not in the negotiating rooms. I don't know how, kind of where he's at. If he's on the breaking point and you're like, we just got to get this guy his money so that he can be in the locker room, because I believe that the Bears are building something good on this defense. I think we're starting to create an identity, starting to have leaders out there. Now, with Eddie Jackson being gone, you need a new safety, but I still think Jaylen is the guy that a lot of people really, really like out there. And if you can bring him back, if you can pay him, that also shows a lot to your locker room. So my guess, I would try and tag him, but if he's on the breaking point, I would ultimately then, give him his contract. I think he's worth it, and he's also still super young and a leader on this defense. I think that you need to keep that unit together. But like I said, let me know down below. But the other piece that people were talking about was with the front four. Because, as we know, Darnell Hunter, lots and lots of rumors that the Bears are going to go after Darnell Hunter. And with this added $10 million in cap space, over $10 million that the Bears are projected to be getting, what this looks like is now, hey, you might be able to go after Darnell Hunter, maybe even a Chris Jones. And it got us even more excited because our new defensive coordinator, Eric Washington, during his press conference said, we're going to be a team that generates pressure with our front four. We're going to build the best pass rush in football. And that's where I am curious. Are you going to bring someone else in? Because when Montez was here, the pass rush was good, but we still blitzed a little bit more than what a Matt Eberflus would generally like. So I'm curious if they're going to go after the big name person. Now, there's a lot of reports from like a Brad Biggs that he still feels like the Bears aren't going to be making these big splashes. But let me know what you think down below. Personally, I want to see the splash. I want to see that out there. If it's Darnell Hunter or Chris Jones, both of those guys are just game wreckers, especially Chris Jones. We all saw what he did at the Super Bowl. He's just next level, and to get that at a 3 technique would be crazy, would be absolutely crazy. The only fear, they're both 30, so they're kind of at that top. Defensive linemen can generally go a little bit longer, but if you're paying all this money to them, they might not be able to finish out that entire contract, whether it's a 3-year or a 4-year deal. But speaking of spending money, let's continue to go on to a Darnell Mooney, some little bit of news about Darnell Mooney. So there was an article posted by Greg Gabriel about Darnell Mooney. And if you remember, when we were doing our fan mock-off season, I said this, like what I said about Darnell Mooney is I still feel like he's not going to want to resign with the Bears. But this is what Greg Gabriel said on the Windy City Gridiron. He posted this out. He said, I realize I may be in the minority, but it would not surprise me if the Bears brought back Mooney on a team-friendly deal. In his first 2 seasons in the league, Mooney caught 142 passes for 1,686 yards and 8 touchdowns. There is no way I'm going to believe that he could not suddenly play. The talent is there as well as his 4.38 speed. Also, I mispronounced the other thing. There is no way I'm going to believe that he could not suddenly play. Because that's the thing. All of a sudden, we saw his play drop off. And I've said this before on this show, that Darnell Mooney is good. Darnell Mooney gets open. And that's where I would love to see if we could bring him back on a team-friendly deal and just have him like, all right, you want to see the new regime? You want to, if it's Caleb Williams, do you want to see what you can do? Ultimately, I want to see him back with Chicago, but I also want to see him happy. You saw how frustrated he was at the end of the season. And now I already know that there's probably somebody that has already posted below in the YouTube comments saying that they don't like Darnell Mooney, but I also have a stat for you. Like I said, when I watched the tape, Darnell Mooney is open. But also when you look at the stats, Darnell Mooney is also open. This was from Arjun. He's I think he's like a data analyst at PFF, but he posted this out where he was tracking the top free agent wide receivers rate of getting open versus single man coverage in 2023. And so this is out of all 118 wide receivers. Darnell Mooney, from a free agent perspective, is third, but in all wide receivers in the NFL, he's the 18th best at getting open versus single man coverage. 18th, top 20. And that rate is 42.28%. So he charted that in 123 single man snaps, he was open 52 times. Now, 42, you're like, that's not very open, but that's the NFL for you. That's the 18th highest. Mike Evans was 9th with 45.95%, and Curtis Samuel, hopefully future Chicago Bear, at 44.59. So that just shows you, first off, how many times people do get open, but it also just backs up the point. Darnell Mooney gets open. he just wasn't getting thrown to. Like I've said before, there's many times that Fields just kind of hesitated and just didn't pull the trigger on the balls. And that's why he's so frustrated. That's why he was kind of dogging it out there. And that's why I want him to be a Chicago Bear. And if he can come back on a 1-year deal, let's see what you can do with Caleb Williams if he is going to be the quarterback for the Bears. But if not, if it's going to be Fields again, to me, I would love to see him at Kansas City. I would love to see him do well. He's always been one of my favorite players, and I just want to see the guy do well and get his money, get his generational wealth for him and his family. So best of luck if you're not a Bear, but if not, I really hope Mooney can stay with the Chicago Bears. But also a little bit more news out there as well, just from the coaching standpoint of things. 2 Chicago Bears coaches were hired today. They hired Ryan Griffin to work with the quarterbacks and receivers. And a little bit about Ryan Griffin. He was a quarterback that was with the Saints from 13 to 14 and the Buccaneers from 15 to 22. And he's really just been a practice squad guy. So that's where you really haven't heard him as a quarterback, because he's just been around on practice squads. And that's another person that is going to be helping out the quarterbacks. We talked about this with the free agent episode, like kind of those bonus hidden free agents where you might want to have a backup that can help your quarterbacks out. And I think this is that guy. So you can keep an agent, and then you can have whoever else you want, and whether it's Fields or whether it's Caleb Williams as your quarterback. I like this. Good move, smart move to just bring in another set of eyes to coach whoever you're going to have at quarterback. But then next, they also ended up hiring Brian Bing as an assistant defensive line coach. Before that, he was with the Colts as a defensive assistant, and before that, a D-line coach at Butler and Wofford College. And last but not least, I've not talked about Bearded Flus. And if you're living under a rock, you might have missed this. Coach Matt Eberflus, rocking the beard, rocking the fade. You know, we're going 17-0. I think that's it, right? And let me know down in the comments. Are you a fan of Bearded Flus? If you're not, don't say anything. No, just kidding. But I think that it's an awesome look, and I think that it's cool. It's turning the page. It's something that's different with this kind of new regime. Like we've said, this really does feel like kind of the new wave of the Bears, if you will, where now you have a new offensive coach, new defensive coordinator, and now hopefully we can turn the page. Also, if you're out there on YouTube, click that little button over there if you haven't already. It will show that you're subscribed. Also, you can like down below. Also, make sure to download the podcast everywhere you get your podcast. You don't want to miss another update. Have a great weekend. With that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair, and you know that she's a